Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the FPV News.
Welcome. It is Tuesday, and we're back. 3 weeks in a row. Who could have believed it?
Oh, yeah, not me, because I'm going away next week. Ha ha! Suckers! Yeah. Don't get used to it.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
But for this week, we are bringing you some stories, and it's the biggest story for some people in a while. If you're not a big fan of DJI news or ExpressLRS news,
I hope it's not DJI.
Yeah.
No, I'm so tired. Well, do you remember when we first started and like every week we were just DJI, all DJI?
Yeah, it was always developments, more open source development and more hacks and more new products and all kinds of stuff was going on back then. So yeah. I think that was more in general. I think about that when I put the news together. You know, it seems like there were more like little open source things that were cool or more like quick progress going on different projects, you know, and now it's more slow, methodical progress with like bigger steps. But
I hear you saying that FPV is dying. That's what I'm hearing. It's official. Blunty says it.
It's evolving. FPV is evolving.
That's true. You know, I don't want to get too off track. Me, but I noticed we're both wearing really cool T-shirts today. Can I see the rest of your T-shirt? Yours? I mean, I can't see the whole thing, but I think it's probably really cool. I love it. I love it. That's great. And mine, do you know what mine is?
I don't, actually.
It's camera butter. It's a camera butter T-shirt, but done in the style of like a metal album where you can barely, like if you kind of squint, somewhere in there are the letters camera butter. But yeah, I like the idea that I'm
seeing eye thing.
Something like that, yeah. We do have news, and surprise, surprise, no surprise, a lot of the news is going to be about DJI. DJI released the Goggles 3 and the Avata, And like, obviously, that's newsworthy. You've all seen reviews and videos about it, so we're going to try to hit the high points, including some developments that have happened since it came out that maybe weren't in some of the original videos or in some of the follow-up videos. Let's settle in. Maybe this is, if you hate DJI, maybe this is, hang around, because we're going to talk about ExpressLRS. Huh?
It's very true.
Where should we start with the DJI Goggles 3 and Avata
I think there's going to be like 3% of people, 2% of people who don't know what we're talking about. So we should just say, DJI, I think that's true. I think it's possible.
Oh, right? No, I'm with you. Never assume that everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. So just for anybody who doesn't know, the DJI Avata 2 is the new version of the Avata, has just been released. It uses the O4 technology, and the DJI Goggles 3, the successor to the DJI Goggles 2 and the Integra, basically a successor to the Integra, has been released. That only works with each other, basically. The Goggles 3 only works with the Avata 2 and a couple other DJI drones, but nothing in the FPV world, right? There's no backwards compatibility and there's no forwards compatibility currently.
And I want to make sure, because I thought I made this clear in my video, and someone pointed out that the exact wording of what I said in my video leaves open the possibility that, like, the Goggles 3 might work with today's O3 Air units. Just to be really clear, not only does the Avata only work with the Goggles 3, but the Goggles
Avata
3... 2. The Avata 2. Yes, thank you, Blunty. The Avata 2 only works with the Goggles 3, but the Goggles 3 only work with the Avata 2 and like the DJI Air 3 and the DJI Pro Mini 4, but not the O3 or the Vista. So if somehow you've gotten your hands on the Goggles 3 and you're thinking you're going to bind them to your existing O3 or Vista, not today, but that brings us to the first sort of piece of news we might point out, because like it's pretty much coming, right?
Yeah, as far as we know, it's coming. We've had confirmation from a couple good sources that there was a pre-release firmware that the Goggles 3 had that actually did support the O3 Air unit, and then that was removed before launch. So I would guess either, there's two schools of thought here, right? One is that DJI likes to wait for everything to be polished, make sure everything is working correctly, needs to make sure all the updates are together. They've done hacky stuff before and had to dual boot operating systems, and we've seen issues with that. So one person would like to think that, they're just waiting to make sure it's right and they wasn't ready, so they pulled it before launch. The other group of people say they actually just want to sell as much hardware as possible before they add support on the new hardware for the old stuff, right? So you can catch as many customers in each bucket as possible.
Because there's some people who, if today they could buy an Avata 2 and use it with their existing Goggles 2, they would, and they'd never buy the Goggles 3. But some of those people are going to go ahead and buy the Goggles 3 today just because they're so freaking excited about the Avata 2. And I think DJI just wants to capture that. That's capitalism. I don't find that to be particularly nefarious. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, if there was actually O3 support that worked really well and they pulled it on purpose to wait 3 to 6 months to then load it in, I think that sounds pretty rough. If you said, hey, we're not going to spend the development time to fix this and polish it, and then that'll happen in the next 3 to 6 months because that's when we want to allocate the time, I feel a little better about that. To me, like, having it completed and ready to go and then just not pocketing in there because we're waiting on capitalism is like a little rough, right?
Maybe I'm just too jaded. I am a little bit jaded, but if you hear that big company does something because they want to make money, I'm like, what do you expect? If they had done,
The problem is, to me, it's not black and white, right? Because you can say, oh yeah, you'll most likely make the most money if you do this process, but like, there's another school of thought that would be like, oh, if you just did it early, you'd gain more user faith in you from always having backwards compatibility at all your launches. Yeah. And then nobody has to ever question if you're going to support the hardware, and they'll just buy it. Right?
That's clearly not the direction DJI has chosen to go.
Well, 100%. I just want to point out there is another world we live in where I think you could still garner support and make that money. But
valid, ask HD0 how that's working out for him. Okay, that was mean. I apologize. That was a mean poke. HD0, what I mean is you've done such a good job at maintaining compatibility, and you've built up a lot of user faith and support because of it. So as far as the compatibility goes, the question is, number one, I think we're pretty confident, like basically 100% confident, that the G3 will get O3 support. And by the way, how confusing is it that the Goggles 2 came out with the O3 air unit, and now the Goggles 3 comes out with the O4 air unit?
It'll never end. Because everybody was like, why would you name it Integra instead of 2? And now everybody's like, why would you name it 3? Because now it doesn't match with the air unit. Yeah.
But then the question, and we don't have an answer for this question, but I think it's interesting to think about, is what will happen to the Goggles 2 and then the V2 goggles? And now we're completely in the realm of speculation. So big speculation alert. I should make a graphic for that.
Yeah.
Blunty, first question.
Speculation station. Okay.
V2 goggles. They're done, right? V2 goggles aren't going to get support for the O4.
I'd be shocked.
Right.
Here's the only thing I'll say is like, yeah, I don't. It's really. I don't know. There's no real good way to say it, right? It's possible, but extremely improbable. But here's what. I don't think the Goggles 2 are that different from the V2 goggles in hardware chips, from my memory. But I could be wrong.
Like the Goggles 2 do H.265, don't they? But the V2 goggles don't.
But wasn't it the Goggles Integra that added the E3 chip that was actually the difference in hardware? That's my memory. I think so. But maybe it was P1 versus S1 and the Goggles 2 versus V2. Somebody else can clear that up. But like, I would just be interested to know if it's actually that different. And maybe they could do it.
But I don't think they will.
But we also have to ask, like, is there monetary, again, because we're back in that world again. Like, what's the monetary purpose of them doing it?
Right.
And I don't know.
And I think they're done supporting the V2 goggles. Like, to add support for new hardware would require them to devote resources. I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, so that's our prediction. We'll see if we turn out to be right. Goggles 2, I think, are the most interesting one to speculate about because I think I feel very confident. Like, I think it's 85%, if I had to put a number on it, that the Goggles 2 and the Integra will get support for the O4 air unit. Agree? Disagree?
85 is very strong.
I feel very strongly. You put it lower?
I'm at like a 30 to 40% for Goggles 2, and I'm about 60 to 70% for Goggles Integra.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Why less for the Goggles 2?
Because it doesn't have that E3 chip, and that E3 chip allows extra processing power for whatever they're doing. Because we know that from some of the feature stuff and the things they discussed. So that's my guess. That's my out of the blue. No, we're both guessing, so that's my guess.
Here's the most interesting thing, though. If they add support for the Integra, let's go with the Integra then. If they add O4 support for the Integra, does that mean that the Integra is now the go-to DJI goggle because the Integra is compatible with O4, O3, and Vista, and nothing else is? Or do you think they're going to add Vista support for the G3?
Well, at that point, the reason, so I think they could add Vista support for the G3 pretty easily if they add O3 support, because the Vista could run in O3 mode now, right? Because they got the update for the Goggles 2 and Integra.
Interesting. Yes.
So I would guess it's much easier to do now because they already did the work before. That would be my guess.
Interesting.
But as far as what's the real difference in the Integras and the G3s? That's the question I have. Right?
Internally, I have no idea.
Yeah, FOV's the same.
They seem very similar.
There's more antennas now. It has 2.4 gigahertz capability, like stuff like that, right? But like, I don't think there's really that big of a difference in the two goggles. So if you like, the pass through seems like a non-thing for most people, right? So if that's all the case, then yeah, I would agree that the Integra just seems better in most cases if it ends up with support for everything, right?
So then is the most likely outcome, again, in pure speculation mode, that the G3 gets support for the O3 and the Vista, and the G2 and Integra get support, and then all three of those goggles have support for all three generations of air unit? Is that really? That seems so pro-consumer that I kind of don't believe it.
I think I think it really just hinges on the work that they did for the Vista getting the 03 firmware, because we've been told many times it acts like an 03. The question is, how much really does it do that on the code level? So how much work is it for them to really port it in to the new goggle? And I bet if it's very little work or no work, they'll just do it. And if it's work, then they won't, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see in a few whatever months, weeks, days, we don't know, how right or wrong we turn out to be, how close we turn out to be. Last question in pure speculation mode. How long till it happens?
So
what do you think?
The timeline for the Avata was the Avata and the Goggles 2 launched. 3 months later, they released the 03 Air Unit standalone. 2 weeks after that, they did backwards compatibility support for the Vista and Air Unit. Okay,
so based on previous evidence, 3 months.
That's all I got. Yeah.
Yeah, good a guess as any.
Otherwise, we're just like blind speculation. Yeah.
Let's hit a couple other high points. The system has 60 megahertz channel width and 60 megabit per second, which gives presumably a little bit better image quality and a little bit better. Hang on, someone's trying to call me urgently.
Okay. Well, they have to be doing something. They have to be doing something with the extra bandwidth, right? Because
extra bandwidth just means like more megabits per second means better resolution when you're doing that kind of compression.
But the megabits per second don't add up anymore because bandwidth is linear, and megabits per second are linear in the bandwidth. So we were at 40 and we had 50, but now we're at 60. We only have 60. So the question is, what's the other headroom for? That's what I would be curious about. Right? Like, well, what are you doing with that other stuff? Or is it because, like
additional error correction kind of a thing?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe you're like double sending some like the center stuff, or maybe you're like, I don't know. I really have no clue.
It'll be interesting when the 04 comes out to see a real side-by-side with the 03 and the 04, just to see. My impression of the range was that it wasn't that, like, they advertised 13 kilometers for the 04 and 10 kilometers for the 03. Those numbers are completely in marketing land, and yet it tells you that DJI is advertising 30% more range for the 04. So not like a night and day difference. The 03 did have pretty good range to start with, though. So slightly better image quality and slightly better range, but not a night and day difference. What about the ham unlock issue? Should we touch on that?
Yeah, so basically we linked a video from MadsTech in the video description. But basically the gist of it is that
today is just a quick video.
EU, and it seems like kind of no matter what, like your phone seems to be checking, and your goggles GPS seems to be checking, and your drone GPS seems to be checking. And if it discovers you're in an area where you're not allowed to have an FCC unlock, the ham unlock does not work.
Yeah.
However, so this is a video by MadsTech where he covers the info that we know currently. And basically the result is the only solution we know of right now is a paid service called drone-tweaks.com, where you can go pay for their service, and you can basically use them to unlock the drone so that you can then use the ham unlock. And it does, I believe it does a bypass through the DJI Fly app, like through the through that connection.
Now, this was really surprising to me because DJI has always made a FCC or ham unlock available for like all of their drones. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm not like super up on their standalone drones, but certainly the Vista and the 03 had it. And it made sense to me because people are like, ooh, there's a leak. DJI, you're hacking it. And it's like, no. If I buy a drone and I live in Europe and then I go to the United States, either move to the United States or just go to a job or just a vacation, then I can legally and legitimately do the FCC unlock and fly it in FCC mode. It makes sense that there's a way for you to change the region of the drone. So my belief, and I've talked to MadsTech about this, and I want to say my belief, I guess I should say MadsTech said it, and I went, that sounds right. So he should probably get more credit than I do, unless it turns out to be wrong, in which case I'll own it. My belief is that this is unintentional, that it will be fixed.
So I'll just say in response to the previous thing, just like it will work if you take it to America because it reads the GPS.
Tell me, what do you mean by that?
My understanding is this is not locked to the hardware. If you connect it to your phone and you're in the United States and your GPS on your drone is in the United States and the GPS on your headset is in the United States, it works fine.
Oh, it just automatically goes into FCC mode, and then you can do manual channels. Oh, so they've gotten smarter. They're still giving you the option to change regions, but not giving Europeans the option to lie about what region they're in.
I mean, it's possible that you can't use a European ham unlock, or there's some rule against it, or you need a different license there, or I don't know anything about that part, right? Mm-hmm. But if that's not the case, if there's no regulatory reason why DJI would be specifically removing that feature, then to me, it's an accident, and they just broke it by not meaning to do it.
All right. Well, the situation with the ham unlock sort of remains to be seen, but it sounds like DJI has gotten a little bit smarter about now everything has a GPS in it. Well, the phone, the DJI Fly app, the drone, and the goggles.
Because of that case. Yeah, I asked Ian Madstech, and he said that he thinks that's all the pieces. If any of them triggers, it will not allow you to do the ham unlock. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sucks to be you, Europeans.
Like until now. That's drone-tweaks.com, but it is a paid service. So.
Okay, drone-tweaks.com. Yeah, it sucks because until now, lots of Europeans have just been like, yeah, sure, FCC hack, screw the regulations. And nobody's really cared, as far as I know. But if they've taken that away, that's a real shame. Okay, so does that bring us pretty much up to speed on...
Yeah, the one last thing I wanted to talk about is... we could probably go out with it. It's a video I've got for you here at a timestamp I wanted you to check out. Okay. We want to give a shout out to this creator. Yeah, this creator is Matthias Dangle. I don't know how you say the last name. I'm sure there's a way to say it. I'm not. But this is his DJI Avata 2 review.
Dangle.
And he is flying around this rock and doing some risky maneuvers.
Oh, always risky to fly around rocks. Oh, shut up. So... Well, I see that it says loses connection, and I also see that he just flew around that rock to the right of himself. Like, immediately, the FPV pilot... Like, this is the difference between a DJI pilot and an FPV pilot. Like, I'm clocking, where am I standing? Well, he's not standing in the ocean. So he's standing on the right side of the screen, presumably. And as he comes around here, boom, I see where he's going. And immediately, my mind is thinking he's going to lose signal as soon as he goes around this cliff right here. That's what happens when you're like a real FPV pilot, man. Anyway, so does he lose it in the water?
Well, let's check out and see, because I would say it's what happens is surprising to me. So here's where it cuts out, and he loses the signal.
So you're like, forget it.
And he says, and in the video he says, I slammed the button for the whatever that is to return to home.
Yeah.
He said right as it cut out, he slammed the button, and then he was continuing to manually fly on the sticks to try to get through the hole just in case it was still responding.
Was he in manual mode?
Yes,
oh, that's the face of a... Look at that face. That's the face of a dude who is sure he just put his Avata. Look at it right here. Ready? There you go. That's the face of a dude who just put his drone in the ocean. Ready? Here it comes. Oh, my God. Look at the body language. We'll do it in slow-mo. Uh-huh. Oh. Oh, my God. Wait. Oh, my God. There it is. That's acceptance. Wait. How does he still have the drone?
So he came back to him. It responded back to him.
Oh, it didn't go in the ocean.
But it was recording the entire time. So he was like, what even happened? How could it have possibly made it back? Right? Okay. And this is the fascinating part to me. So obviously this is where it cut out.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Show me. I'm so on edge right now. So, okay, he finished the shot. Oh, that's where it kicks in. So like, does it go up in the air?
So do you know how RTH works on the DJI Avata 2?
Well, it climbs to altitude and flies home, right?
Guess what it does before it climbs to altitude?
What does it do?
Well, you're about to find out.
Oh my God. You told me not to watch this before the news. Now I'm like,
So
no, but now you're just like teasing me. Show me. Oh, it freezes? Okay. It turns. What is it turning around? Whoa, no. What is it doing?
It's going back to the place that lost the signal.
And
it's using its position sensors to avoid the walls and everything while it flies back to the spot it lost signal.
Whoa. Because then like if you flew into a fail-safe location, maybe you lost signal because you flew into an interior, and it turns around and flies back out before it then climbs.
It saves the point you lost signal, or you hit the button, whichever. He got the button hit, and then it just saved that point, and then immediately responded back to it when it needed a return.
Wow. Every time, I'm such an FPV pilot that every time my Avata says, low battery returning to home, I'm like, no, don't return to home. I don't know how this works. I never want it to actually return to home, which is like the thing it's known best for.
I mean, the idea is, what if he had flown into a cave, right?
Yeah.
And it would have just gone up and broke.
Like under an underpass or into a building.
Or still been under the arch when it triggered or whatever, right? Yeah, that's the idea there. So
it's shit like that makes me say, and by the way, like, does INAV do this? Does Pixhawk or RG Pilot do this? Maybe. Right. I don't know. I'm not going to presume that DJI invented it, but like, it's shit like that makes me go, DJI, man, you're thinking.
The difference is this is out of a box, right? And you don't have to add all the sensors and set it up and configure it and know how they all work. And like, I mean, it's for a certain group of people. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of drones that would have crashed in that scenario, and I think it's pretty cool that you can buy something out of the box that doesn't do that. So I thought that was a neat addition to the way it works. And now that's pretty cool. If you lose signal or you hit that button, it'll come back to that point and then go up in the air. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I better practice before I do. But any flying where I might actually fail safe. INAV does have the ability to unwind your flight path, and I haven't tested this. My reading of the INAV feature was that it unwinds the entire flight path. So if you flew 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 3 kilometers, and it just went doop, 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 that'd be fine. But if you're just flying around the beach, I've thought, you wouldn't want to just unwind the whole thing. But I don't know if it does that exact thing or not.
Interesting. I wonder if you can trigger it and untrigger it when it's back where it needs to be or something like that. I don't know. I don't know.
Alrighty. Well, that's all we had. That's it, Blunty. A half hour is enough talking about DJI. I have to draw the line, sir. These people came to hear about ExpressLRS.
Yeah, I think some of them did.
Yeah. I'm more excited about ExpressLRS than the DJI Avata, and I mean that.
So this is RC1 of 3.4. So this is the newest minor version, or whatever the terming is, right? The 0.4 version, so still compatible with 3.0. This is a release candidate one. So, only flash if you're, wanting to test this. And, there could be bugs.
Flash it immediately.
But basically, we've got a bunch of features, and there were basically enough features that were like, bugs. They were like, hey, we gotta take a moment and just cut this and get a bunch of features out there. So that's kind of what they did. So the first one I wanted to point out. Features? Team Race is a cool one. So that's one of the first ones there. Team Race essentially lets you control who has control of a drone remotely.
Wait, multiple pilots controlling the same drone?
Not at the same time, but the idea is instead like, hey, okay, I'm flying at Mayhem. Mm-hmm. And we're doing all this 12-hour thing, right? We gotta get another drone up right away, and we've crashed out in the field. So we can't go recover it because everybody's still doing laps around this infinitely flying field, right? So instead, I'm just going to kill the drone remotely from this feature. Then I'm going to let that pilot assign to a new drone immediately.
Oh, so remotely. I have Pilot 1, and Pilot 1 has 4 drones. Or I should say Pilot A. Pilot A has 4 drones. Drone number 1 crashes out. Pilot A now can just flip an aux switch, and he or she is controlling drone number 2, while drone number 1 is downed in the field and not
because otherwise
around.
Because otherwise you'd have to find a way to unpower it to unbind it from the radio so you could bind to the second drone.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Team Race. People have been doing that with by forcing failsafe with failsafe aux mode. Is this just the same thing?
It's like an integrated support in the system for like basically forcing a failsafe. So like it does it on its side, essentially, instead of you doing it through Betaflight, I think is the idea.
Interesting. So this is how people have been doing it in Betaflight, but I guess the advantage of it being built into ExpressLRS, well, one, it might be a little bit more seamless, or it might have features, but number two is that you're going to be able to do it maybe if you have a non-Betaflight bird, since it's handled in the receiver. Very slick. What else? What are some other big features that have been added?
Another one I thought was kind of cool is just US 443 bands have been updated. So that's new. If you were trying to fly on 433 before, then you were having some trouble with the amount of bands that were open. There's Gemini support for it, but they would kind of cross each other because of the smallness of the bands. So the US now has support for that. If you were into that, that's an option.
Only permitting 3 hopping channels. You're barely hopping at that point. Interesting.
Yeah, so now there's 20 hops on 433 in the US.
Oh, I see. They were like, oh, we're following the rules, but turns out no one else is following the rules, so we were just like, F it. We're not going to follow the rules either. Something like that? Okay. Great.
I'm not going to speak for them, but yeah, something like that.
Sure. Okay. My favorite feature is the binding updates, and this came up. I'm not going to take too much credit for this, but I will take a small amount of credit because this is something I've complained about for a long time. And sometimes when I complain about things, devs go, "Fine, shut up," or "Okay, I guess you've got a good point," and then they do the work. And Captain Bry and any other devs, I don't know who actually did all the commits, but the devs did a more work than you would think. This was way harder than you would think to sort of integrate and unify the binding process of ExpressLRS. So basically, number one, if the receiver has a button, like a bind button or a bootloader button, then that is now a bind button, and it can be used to just push the bind button, bind your drone. No more like 1, 2, 3 plug thing. But the beautiful thing, people hear that and they go, wait a minute, I like the 3 plug thing. Guess what? The beautiful thing is that all of the ways that you have previously bound all still work. And now the bind button works. And go ahead.
And Betaflight, now the bind RX through Betaflight now works through Crossfire.
Yes.
CRSF.
Yes. And it's all integrated. So like, do you know how in ExpressLRS, if you put a bind phrase in, then the 3 plug one doesn't work anymore? And it's like, well, or if you flash a bind phrase, then it's overridden by the bind phrase you enter in the web UI. But then if you reset the web UI, the bind phrase that you flashed is still in there. Like, and you don't know about all this. All you know is that like binding ExpressLRS is a pain in the ass, and you have to remember all these edge cases that only people like me remember. They've unified it all. It's just bind the damn thing however you want to bind it, just do it, and it all just kind of works seamlessly, and the bind button works. Hallelujah. I have to make another big donation to the ExpressLRS project. I haven't donated to them recently.
A couple other things
Thank you guys.
A couple other things that will be amazing quality of life here will be that, so now if you hold the button for a second and a half while it's on, it'll bind. It'll go into binding mode. It will stay in binding mode. If you ever have it in binding mode or put it in binding mode, it'll just stay there. It won't kick into Wi-Fi. Now you can just hold the button for 5 seconds, and that's Wi-Fi mode. So great. Yeah. And now it'll still work as normal. If it doesn't see anything for a while, it can, but now there's a binding mode where it will stick there. You can reset all the configuration by holding it 12 seconds, and it'll wipe everything on it. So you can clear out any issues that were happening. Maybe you set the baud rating correctly, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. If you got a receiver and it's not working and you can't get into the web UI and somebody's jacked with it, just hold the button down for 12 seconds and boom, it's just reset back to factory defaults. Well, flash defaults.
Yes. Definitely feels a little easier to deal with.
Yeah. And just thank you guys. I know the reasons that it was so complicated had to do with sort of, you build years ago, you make it and it works one way. And then you're like, oh, I could make it work better. And you slowly add things on, and they've added on in sort of an ad hoc way. And the result is that in order to make it really good, you have to go back and you have to just dig out a lot of ancient DNA, and it's not as simple as just, I don't know, just make it work right. And so thank you guys for doing the work. Captain Bryce says it resets to factory defaults, not the flash defaults, except for the regulatory domain. Thank you for the clarification, Captain Bryce. Go ahead, Blunty.
Another thing is now, if you set binding from the radio and the RX can see it, it will go into binding automatically. So it's like over the air binding set from the radio, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this for those reasons. Oh, there's one more feature. This only certain people are going to care about this. The Gemini crossband. So like Gemini, you have two transmitters. They're both in the same frequency band. So you have higher LQ and more link resilience. But some people were like, well, why do they have to both be in the same frequency band? Why can't I have one transmitter in 900 megahertz and one in 2.4 gigahertz? And now you can.
Yeah.
That's built in.
Yeah, now you can.
And I say only certain people will care about that because, like, I've always, like, FreeSky did this years ago with a mixed 2.4 gig and 900 meg R9. This was before ExpressLRS even was a thing. And I was like, what's the freaking point of that? And I guess the point is that you have a low latency connection when you're up close and a long range higher latency connection when you're further away. But it kind of didn't make a lot of sense to me. But, like, if you're in a situation where one frequency band might suddenly become unavailable and you need to switch to another one, obviously that is another potential use for this. So interesting to see that development coming out.
Yeah,
like interference, Dennis Matovich.
Obviously, you have to have specific hardware for this, the LR1121 chip. But yeah,
and currently there's no commercial hardware that does it, right?
Not sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, ExpressLRS devs, for your amazing work. Where are we going now, Blunty?
Next up, we've got our cinematic of the week, and it's not super. I mean, every now and then we show reels from a pilot, but yeah, I thought this was a pretty good FPV reel that we were shared from Royden FPV. So I want to go ahead and show it off.
135 subscribers. Hopefully that'll pump up a little bit with this exposure. If this reel is any good. We're not going to play the audio because sometimes there's licensed music and we don't like to deal with that. So if you want to go check it out, it's linked in the video description below. Let's take a look at what Royden Leap has got for us. Nice little macro shot of a motor. I'm down for that. Ooh, more macro shots. Ooh, what frame was that? Okay. Okay, we've got a little montage. Oh, I'm a fan of purple light, that's for sure. Chimera. There we go. Give it to me. I like the color grade. Smooth flying. Oh, cloudy mountains. Big fan. Ooh. Very nice. Very nice.
There's a shot. Yeah.
Slow-mo.
Like some of these are really cool, just like one-off kind of little things, you know?
Yeah. Just trying to time it with the waves, I guess. Nice. Through the water.
Yeah, I love the way that looks. It's almost like he's in snow.
What the heck is this? Where is this? Is this mirrored? It's not mirrored. What is it? Where are you flying, dude? Whoa. Oh, I'm sorry. I need more of that shot. I want to know more about this situation. Where the hell are you flying, dude? Wow. I wish you had not cut away so fast. I would love to see the rest of that shot. This guy gets around, dude.
Yeah, he does have more videos on his channel. This is just his reel, but he has a video of that location specifically with a uncut, I believe, or with at least less cuts.
Nice slow-mo. Very nice. Yeah. Ooh, okay, now we got some speed. Okay. if I had a criticism, it'd be I wish that a lot of these shots were just a little longer. I mean, maybe if I was listening to the music, it would make more sense why he's cutting where he does. But like, I'm really enjoying some of these shots, and I'm like, can I have more, please? Really nice landscapes, though. Okay. Well, Royden Lep, thank you for the reel. We watched almost the whole thing. You want to check out more of his stuff? There's links in the video description to his channel, to that video on his channel. Got any events this week, Blunty?
Yeah, we've only got one event, but we wanted to let you know about it over in Meppen, or I don't know, Meppen, Germany. I'm going to guess that's how you say it. It's
Meppen.
the Funpark is the event, Funpark 24, and that's coming up in August 15th through the 18th. You can go hang out on the left, or you can click the, oh, there it goes automatically.
No, I'm scrolling.
Okay. Yeah, there's a big freestyle event over in Germany. They've got a bunch of pictures and information about the place. And
Jesus.
I've heard from a couple of people, it's pretty cool to go to. I believe this is a couple of years into it, so go check it out if you're going to be over there in Germany in August.
Huh. Interesting. All right, well, very cool. And wish the best to the event, and thanks to the organizers for putting it up. Okay, well, now it comes to the super chats. We're going to take a look, and we're going to see what super chats we got. We only have 2 super chats today. TJ GameStar. TJ, by the way, you asked this question way back at the beginning of the stream. I hope you're still here. During the FPV news, we don't prioritize answering questions for super chats, and we put the super chats off till the end. A little different than how the Q&A streams do. This isn't a Q&A stream, so apologies for making you wait so long. But TJ GameStar, thank you for a $5 donation. Acro trainer mode problem. Often, when I hit the angle limit set, my drone will lock in that angle. Any ideas other than don't do that? I don't know. No ideas. Acro Trainer mode came out. I tested it and made a video about, it exists. And then I never looked at it again. And I think many other people did. In fact, hasn't it been removed from Betaflight 4.5, at least by default?
You have to build it in, I believe. Yeah, you have to add it.
Yeah. So by default, it's not even included, although you can add it. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there's a bug. One problem that might be happening is if you have your angle limit set particularly high, as you get close to 90 degrees, the math sort of gets asymptotic, and you may be encountering that. So maybe you've just got your angle limit set too high. But frankly, my advice is the thing you said not to do, which unfortunately that's my advice. Just like, why you fly an angle limit? What's your goal there? Can you just fly in acro mode? Like, it's cool that it's there, but like by the time you're doing extreme things in acro trainer mode, you just fly in acro mode, you know? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's that. I don't know the answer other than that, though. Maybe there's a bug. It's obscure. Mike Bundy, thank you for a $5 super chat. Mike Bundy got his A2, his Bamboo A2 from a local retailer upon release, but I had to wait for DJI to send me a controller 3. Wait, A2? Avata 2. He got his Avata 2, but DJI had to send him the controller 3. How'd you get the Avata 2 without? I thought it was only being sold in the bundle, at least today's. That's weird.
I don't know.
Well, kudos to you, Mike Bundy. Hope you enjoy it.
The controller, okay, you're right. It would come in the bundle. That makes sense.
Oh, no. That's it. The controller doesn't come in the bundle. It's the motion controller. The hand controller is sold separately. Haha. So you have to pay $200 extra. So you paid $1,300 for 3 batteries, the drone, the motion controller, which, to be fair, like the motion controller on the previous drones, I think many people weren't a big fan of it. I think it's much better on the Avata 2. It's like not just a throwaway item, to be fair. If they add head tracking support for the standard controller, then I will be like, okay, I'm back. But right now, I fly my Avata 2 with the hand controller more than I do with the motion controller more than I do the hand controller. No shit. Because of the way that the gimbal can sort of track your movements.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a decent chance that that's because it's novel?
I mean, sure, maybe. But like, now I have to say I didn't get a lot of stick time with the motion controller. DJI sent me a motion controller for the FPV drone, and I tried to update the firmware on it, which I do whenever I get hardware from manufacturers. Well, like depending on the manufacturer, but like I know DJI wants me to test on the latest firmware, and I accidentally bricked it, and it turns out there was an instruction that came with it that said, "Do not update firmware, you will brick this," and that's 100% on me. And I reached out to my DJI contact and said, "Hey, I updated the firmware on it, and it's bricked. Is there any way to get it back?" And he was like, "Nope." And then I never heard from him again on that. I mean, eventually, I was like, "Oh, so I guess I don't get to review the motion controller," is what you're telling me. We sent you one and you destroyed it. That's on you. So to be fair, but I think it just works better. I think it works really well. The way they've integrated the head tracking and the gimbal, I think it works really well. What I want is, and by the way, Josh Medlin from Medlin Drone is out there going, "Yeah, duh, I've been saying this for years." But what makes it so good is that as you're flying, if I go down, the gimbal goes zoom like that, and the drone doesn't have to pitch forward and dive from the moon. Whereas when you're flying with the hand controller, the gimbal is fixed at a certain angle. And yes, you can adjust it by moving a slider, but it's very not seamless. It needs head tracking so that you can look down and aim, just like you do with the Medlin drone gimbal. That's, I think, the killer feature.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, so $1,300 for the kit, and then another $200 for the RC controller if you want it, which you probably do. It's not cheap, that's for sure, but... Royden Lepp, thank you for a $10 super chat. Wouldn't be flying without me, he says. Well, that means a lot. Your video looks really good, dude. EMA FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. I'm going to flash my TX and RX to ELRS 332. Do my TX settings get wiped and I have to set up again? What TX settings? Do they get wiped? Like, what settings are stored in the TX? Like the binds? The binds?
Packet rate, power...
Like the bind is just your bind phrase, so that won't get wiped.
Yeah.
You may have to re-enter the bind phrase, I guess.
And the RX doesn't know anything about the packet rate or power. That's assigned by the TX. So
is that stored in the TX, or is that stored like in the Lua script? I think it's stored in the TX.
I mean, either way, it's going to be the same if you're only flashing the receiver. Is what I mean.
He's flashing the transmitter too, though.
Then I don't know the answer.
I think that you should assume the settings are going to get wiped, but like, how many settings are there really? Many of those settings are baked into the firmware when you build the firmware, so that's how I carry the settings forward. Chunky Tuna, thank you for a $10 super chat. Screw remote ID, vote libertarian. Relax, it's a joke. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll take it in that spirit, and I will neither agree nor disagree with you in the interest of political neutrality. Kattenbry says there are settings stored on the TX. We try to upgrade the settings from the previous versions, but I'm not 100% sure it works well. The model settings won't get wiped. Like the radio model settings, like your mixes and so forth, won't get wiped. That's in the radio. Okay. That's all the super chats. Let's do It's Barely News.
All right. It's Barely News. This is where we go through stories that we didn't really want to put in the main lineup. We might talk about them for a minute. We might talk about them for 20 minutes if we get rambly, because that's what happens here on this show. But the first one is, I've titled it The Rolling Multirotor. And this is one of those things they do at a university that's like cool with drones, but maybe will be used or never used.
Okay. So we've
seen a lot of these, the Dragon drone and the modular drones and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, multi-linked deformable multirotor. Okay, so it's a triangle right now. And it takes off. It's hovering. And it's going to like straighten out or whatever, right? Like we've seen this before.
Sort of, yeah. I think you'll see the last mode is the mode that like is the new thing.
Are there separate motors or servos controlling the angle of the joints? Or is that that has to be separate? It says like it's rigid. It's having some problems with its PID tune. It's wobbling a lot.
Yeah, the tune's not great. But it can do this.
Oh, I see where we're going. What is that motor doing? Do you see the motor going, nah. It doesn't. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm not happy. Okay.
But it's a concept. It's kind of neat.
Way to go. I hope you got your PhD for this. Or whatever. That's pretty slick. Clearly some work. I'm reminded of those drones from Star Wars. You know, the droids that like roll up. And,
the droidica, right?
Yeah. Is that what that's called?
Mm-hmm.
I knew you would know.
I only remember because the two ambassadors, the two old ambassador guys in Star Wars that they always say like, I don't know. I remember them yelling about droidica. So.
Okay. Next
up, Teal Drones is in the news.
Our friend Teal Drones, owned by Red Cat.
Yes, owned by Red Cat. This is a sort of story, sort of non-story, but this sort of sums up the situation that we've talked about a little bit, where we've had issues in the United States with anti-China. The main bill that's trying to push now, the Countering CCP Drones Act, is back, and it seems like it has a decent chance of getting through. It's like 33% still on GovTrack, and it does seem to have legs. So it's possible that there will be some nationwide ban on these kind of drones. This kind of covers the whole situation, but it does it from the angle of looking at what Teal's role has been and how they've been providing drones to people. This sort of reads like a historic situation. This sort of reads like a little bit of an ad for Red Cat. But what I thought was interesting is if you scroll all the way to the very bottom of this, and then look at the second to last paragraph. This is what we've speculated forever, but is now the case. The third to last and second to last. It says, third to last is, the prospects remain difficult for any consumer-oriented U.S. drone company to survive in the face of competition from DJI. Teal's parent company, Red Cat, has also owned two consumer drone startups, Fat Shark and Rotor Riot, who are sourced from China to keep their costs down.
That's one way to put it.
Red Cat recently sold those two startups, keeping only Teal. With us working with the government daily now, we've got to split ourselves, Thompson said. We can't say made in USA, and I'm on the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning ordering a bunch of stuff from China. So this is what we had speculated, and we've talked about kind of on and off before, which is that they were divesting for government reasons. But this is directly saying, like, we cannot work with any companies that are getting things from China, like all the consumer drone companies have to do, or we're going to lose our government contracts. And that's basically what we had previously thought.
And obviously the owner of the company is going to play it up, but this also suggests that Red Cat and Teal have, like, every day. He's got all these. How many government contracts? How many drones are they selling to the government? I mean, we don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know there's a decent amount of them. I mean, they're one of the drones that is being ordered by, like, for instance, a lot of the companies in. A lot of the agencies in Florida who are no longer allowed to use DJI because Florida passed that bill.
Okay, then excuse me, but I think this is where they actually went listed on the NASDAQ. When are my stock options going to be worth selling? That's what I want to know. Never.
Yeah, buy the dip, as they say.
well, apparently we're still in the dip. Yeah.
So yeah, like essentially what we thought is the case. So if you wanted to know, like, this is actually a pretty good conversation from like, you would think in an article about Teal, it would be more focused on like, China bad, and we want more Teal drones, but it's not that way at all. It's people explaining like, we need Chinese drones to survive. Like these drones suck. They're 10 times the price, and they're not good.
In a story about Teal, the message is, we're doing our best, guys. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it. I mean, they talk to different agencies, and they're like, we have 12 Skydio drones, which we paid $25,000 a piece for, and we can't even fly them inside because they lose signal. Like they're like, we no longer can do indoor flights to go get information now. They can't because the drones don't operate when they fly inside. And it's $25,000 per drone.
I'm sorry. Then you need better pilots. Listen up. Listen up, big army. These autonomous drones that these people are trying to sell you, they can't deliver.
But
you need better pilots to fly the dumb drones. You need FPV pilots.
What dumb drone can they fly?
An FPV drone, a GEP-RC.
No, all U.S. parts. You can't use Chinese parts.
Oh, that's doable. Orca. Orca's going to make it. NDAA, built in Croatia. No Chinese parts.
Okay.
That's the future.
I think there's a lot of room for that, and I think there's companies trying to do that, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Next up.
A Pogo Drone. This is the way I described this from checking it out. This is another drone with, they did weird stuff, and I'm not 100% sure why. But it's a thing, and we wanted to share it on It's Barely News.
Okay.
So there's a video, if you want to check out the video.
Oh, I love these little delicate...
It is both what you think and also not what you think.
We present a monopedal hopping quadcopter named Hopcopter. Hopcopter is a micro quadcopter with a springy telescopic leg.
I already love the voice. Okay.
This design allows the robot to both hop and fly. To control the jumping trajectory, we proposed a dynamic hopping model and a model-based controller, allowing the robot to follow a prescribed trajectory in a continuous jumping mode.
Interesting. So it's saving energy because it's not flying the whole time.
When hopping, the robot shows notably improved power efficiency and endurance compared with flying.
So our horrible feature is the drone pogoing.
The robot only needs to compensate for the energy lost in impact from the landing.
To come for you.
This results in a max time.
Well, 50 minutes compared to a 6.3 minute flight time.
Synergistic and hybridly decelerate. By stepping on the wall and an inclined surface, the robot makes a U-turn and instantaneously stops at the flight speed of 4 meters per second.
You don't waste energy with your props trying to change directions.
Hybrid locomotion dramatically boosts agility.
That's so cool. I want that to be a video game. I feel like it's a Spider-Man video game. You know? Very cool.
For the robot to hop without position feedback, we developed a removable active aerodynamic stabilizer.
I don't know what that technology will ever be.
When equipped with the stabilizer, the hopping dynamics become passively stable. This makes the robot suitable for outdoor operations.
One thing I noticed is that all of the places they're hopping, the ground is relatively simple. Like, I wonder how well it would work on a gravel surface, for example, where you don't necessarily know the angle that you're going to bounce off on. Nevertheless, that's legitimately cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Lots of potential for that.
Now,
go.
The last story is not quite the dog rescue story we normally get.
Okay.
And it really feels like it's not real. But I did a lot of searching, and it seems real. It just seems weird and something you don't see ever. That's what I'm going to say.
Man uses drone to find missing husky who was hanging out with a family of bears. Oh, there's the doggo chilling with the bears.
Yeah, there is video if you scroll down.
Like the dog's lucky the bears took a liking to him.
Look how he's being so annoying.
I love how I've got this 16:9 widescreen in a tall 16:9 zoomed. It's good that they got along. Yo, what's up, guys? How y'all doing? Yeah, we're just chilling. This is my bros.
There's speculation about it being, I don't know. It could be fake. It could be real. I couldn't figure out if it was or not. So we figured we would share it.
Oh, they're playing. Maybe. Oh, you better step back.
He's like, all right, dude.
Take her easy. Enough with the barking. Oh, no. The dog is trying to herd the bear.
It does seem
that looks
way,
like
right?
herding. That looks like herding behavior. What kind of dog was it? Husky? Huskies don't herd, do they? They're not herd dogs.
Right. Not normally, at least. Yeah. Could be a mix, though.
Yeah, maybe it was just nipping.
Or people could be calling it a mixy husky, but it's like some kind of albino German Shepherd.
I can't tell if this is rotated, and I'm just watching it again and again and again. Comment says they grew up together in a Canadian animal shelter. The dog.
I looked for evidence of any of that though, and that didn't exist. So like, I agree that like it could be fake, but there's no actual evidence of that.
It's a cool story either way. And that's going to bring us to the end of the news for today and for the next couple weeks. I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. Oh wait, we have a couple more super chats. I'll make sure I get them. Hold on. I'm going to be gone. It's going to be weird. Like, I'm going to be back in town. We should do news on the 7th, Blunty. Because I'll be in town that week. And then Fabio and Maria, my editor, and his wife are coming to visit. And I think I probably am going to stream some of those days too. Just because I don't want to like go on a month-long break. But it's going to be, I think the 7th will be when we'll be back for sure. And then after that, we'll have to play it by ear. Maybe the 14th. The 7th and maybe the 14th. And then another break for the 21st. Anyway, we'll be gone for a couple weeks. That's what you should take away from this. Yeah. Why don't people want you to do the news by yourself, Blunty? And I know you and I have talked about this, but I don't want people to think I'm being mean to you.
Yeah. I have zero desire to do that. So...
Yep. What if I found you an equally competent co-host? This is the part where you say that wouldn't be possible.
I can't imagine anybody who could replace you.
That's a clever. Let's see. Mars, thank you for a $2 super chat. Is it true that you read 90% of the super chats? No, that is not true, because I read 100% of the super chats, and 100 is not 90. Got him. Podcast, thank you for 14 South African Rand. What happened to the game-changing toroidal props? Shocker, they weren't game-changing. They were hype, just like everything else. And when you look on my channel and you see that I never made a video about them, that's why. Every so often, being cynical pans out. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, unless those shots were going to miss anyway, in which case you saved energy. Morris, thank you for a $5 super chat. Is it true you read at least 90% of the super chats? Yes, that is true. I read at least 90% of the super chats because I read 100%. Mike, thank you for a $5 super chat. I have 2 ELRS radios with different binding phrases and multiple quads. Can I change the quad's binding phrase from my radio? Yes. What you need to do is rebind the receiver, and that will essentially change the binding phrase to match the quad. But you can't do it except by rebinding the receiver. There's no other way to do it. Now, what you could do is give both radios the same binding phrase, and then whichever one of them that's turned on will be controlling the quads. It seems like that's actually what you want. But if you need both of the radios to be turned on at the same time, like you have 4 quads and you need 2 of them to fly at the same time, but you don't know which 2, the only answer is to just bind them immediately before flying. The 3-plug method could help with that. Fernando Shuin, thank you for 50 reais. I know RG-copter isn't designed for racing, but can it? Yes, but it flies like crap. You can race a quadcopter that flies like crap, and you'll have a great time doing it. I'm not discouraging you from doing it. I actually had an experience a little while back. I was hanging out with someone who was a huge RG Pilot proponent, and I said, somebody asked, "Can RG Pilot, do freestyle?" And I was like, "Nah, it flies like crap." And he was like, "Well, that's not true. I can tune it and make it fly really good." And he went and spent like the next day and a half PID tuning and tweaking and testing this 5-inch. And then he gave it to me and I flew it. And I was like, no, that's not bad. It's about as good as the default Betaflight tune. So like, can RG Pilot fly good? It can. It can. It's a lot more effort for acro flying, it's a lot more effort to get it to fly good than Betaflight, but it can. It's just not what its specialty is. But like, if you like have the ability to race with Betaflight, you should. All right. There we go. We're done. Thanks, Blunty. Thank you, guys.
Right. I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Bye, everybody. Don't do anything newsworthy until I get back.
Bye.